this would just be like a cross made of plastic. And then I added these shapes on each of the 4 sides, and I kind of angled them. See, these here are actually comprised of 4, let's see. So each one of these is made of a cylinder with 2 squares attached to it to create the angle. And then if I combine these with the center cross, it'll slice out, you know, these 4 angles to make it kind of a tapered shape. In here, this was originally just a solid surface, so I made a circular hole here and combined it with this to make a indentation. And then I've got a second cylinder at the bottom, which I combined like this to make it part of the whole unit. And then I've got this hole here, which I can combine to cut out this portion here. And then I've got 12 individual little rectangles. I think I'm on orthogonal view, perspective view. So I've got these 12 little rectangles going all around the center. Modeling, I feel like, was 12 hours maybe, separated over a few days. You know, it was still kind of 90-degree rigid corners here. So I took a bunch of shapes like this and kind of angled them to overlap just barely with the corners here. And then I turned them into holes, into negatives in the interface, which meant that when I combine them, it cuts those pieces out. So it causes smooth slopes like this. And then I did the same here to make the tips rounded. And then here, so what I did to make the corners rounded is I've got these boxes here which overlap the corner. You can see the dark areas where they overlap in here. So they overlap in just such the right way that when they're combined, it slices off what is not the curved area. But the way I made this is each one of these boxes is made of a solid square. Oops. Let me hide these again. It's made of a solid square combined with a hole that itself is a semicircle. So if I hide this, you see it's just a semicircle. So I set it up to where that circle would protrude out of the piece only in the areas where it needed to be curved. So it starts down there and ends up there, and then all of this corner is not part of the circle. So when I have this square here and I combine the square and the cube or the rectangle, then what I get is a rectangle that has a void everywhere that the circle should be. When I combine these, it slices off this surface here, and it's a rounded curve. So to make the bevel on the inside where the screw sits, I took one of these shapes here. It's kind of like a donut or a ring. Changed the angle here, and increased the wall thickness, and made it kind of like a double cone shape. And each surface is 45 degrees, so I could just take this and make it into a void and set it in here, and then combine it, and it cuts off a 45-degree slant around this top of the hole here. So once I had the 3D model of the piece, I took it and put it into this program, which converts it into a set of instructions for the printer to take, which is known as slicing. So let's see, first, let's move this out of the way because this came later. So if I slice it, so starting from the first layer, it draws the base of the shaft here, and then this is going to be a support to hold the parts that would otherwise not be connected to the build plate. So you can see the outline here of where it'll take shape. So as you go up the layers, then it builds successively higher. And here it's got an infill, so it's not entirely solid in here because it doesn't have to be, or it didn't initially. Most pieces don't, and so it just fills most of the space with a structurally strong design. And so here there's the interface where the top half of the piece is going to sit, and then it starts building the actual top half of the piece, which is more solid than the supports were. So then it builds all the way up to the top, and that's the finished piece. And so each one of these layers, if you click play here, you can see the path that the print head is going to take to lay down all of the plastic that's on that layer.
What's the print time on?
just like this. So this piece requires 2.5 hours to print per knob. So you can print multiple knobs in a single pass, but I believe the time scales linearly. So it's just a case of being able to, leave the printer alone for a longer period of time. So the first draft I did was this, and it wasn't quite strong enough in the center here. So I took this shape here and I modified it to alter settings for the printer based on overlaps. So anywhere that this shape is intersecting with the print, I have it set to do 100% infill. So with that, now in the layer view, you can see that the core of the print, that shaft, is just 100% full. It makes it much stronger. And it only increases the print time by half an hour per piece. So 2.5 hours total to print one of these, and 2 would take 5 hours, 3 would take 7.5. So it scales linearly like that. But mostly it's just a question of leaving the printer alone for that much time to have it produce them.